We're going to do two things. We're going to go over my review of the Everydollar budget app, which is what I've been using for the past 2 years. And then also we're going to track my expenses. So you can see how I do it in case you've never done it before or you just want another way of doing it, because I never really have to worry whether or not we're doing well with our money because of how I track our expenses. I also don't need these. These are just blue light glasses. This has not only this version, but it also has a desktop version. And what I really like about that is now I can use them both at the same time. I do have this kind of dual monitor setup. So normally I'll actually just do it based off of that, but I know that most people don't have that. So I won't be doing that in this video. I used to just go about tracking my expenses as I would make purchases, and I think that this was a really good habit to build as I was getting out of debt, because then I never really forgot to track my expenses. But now I don't really worry about doing that, especially because we've been budgeting for over 2 years now. We don't even really have to track that much anymore to know whether or not we're getting close to where we want to be spending every single month. It's just kind of second nature since we've been doing it. All right, I want you guys to be able to see both my computer and my phone while I'm doing this. We will have screen recordings, but it'd probably be easier if we just move this whole desk. That was much harder than I thought it was gonna end up being. So first, head over to Everydollar. If you've never used Everydollar before, you're gonna have to make an account. I just use the free version of Everydollar because I don't think you need the paid version. The paid version, you can connect your bank accounts and everything with it, but I prefer to actually track my expenses this way because every time that I've used something that's automatically input my bank accounts, with the exception of QuickBooks, it hasn't worked super well. When you set up your account, you're gonna have to first set up your budget. Since we've already made our budget, we have it here for April 2021. We've already tracked some expenses. You can change it to either be remaining or spent so that you can see how much you've spent in a given month versus how much you have left to spend. I always like to put remaining because I don't tend to check my bank account when I'm looking at what I'm spending. I just check my budget in the app. So this one you go planned, you can also go to spent or remaining. What I like to do, because I like to type on the computer, it makes things a little bit faster, is I will go onto all of my banking apps on my phone and look at my expenses and then track it. Since I've already tracked some transactions, your transactions are gonna be found up here. I hit transactions and then I look at my tracked. I see that I've tracked up through April 12th. Now the way that we do our spending is only through a bank account if something can only take a bank draft, or through a credit card. And most of our spending is on 1 or 2 credit cards. So we pretty much just have to go to Chase and look at that credit card to see what we spent. So I'll log on to Chase real quick. You can't see my password. All right, so on Chase, we have the 2 credit cards. As we can see on the 14th, this is gonna be the first thing that we spent, $10 at Starbucks. And so all we'll have to do is go to transactions, add new. I'll put $10. Where did we spend the money? Starbucks. When I started out tracking my expenses, I would always change this to the actual date. Now, I don't necessarily care about when the actual date is. If you want to be as accurate as possible, you can change the date and scroll down here and find whatever budget item you spent from. Coffee. So we'll just put coffee shops. Boom. There we go. Tracked. So that's how you would do it normally. What we're going to do in a second is actually going to be a faster way of doing it, in my opinion. And we're just going to go to the other credit card, which is where we spend the majority of our money, go through everything that we've spent past the 12th. But then I also like to double check not only the date, but also like the exact item. So I see on the same date that State Farm drafted $274.98. There was also a charge at 7-Eleven. So it doesn't look like that was, but the Walmart right before it was. So we'll start with that 7-Eleven transaction. $47.71, 7-Eleven. And then instead of choosing the budget item, we're just gonna hit add new. Now what this is gonna do is it's gonna put it into new transactions. And then after we do all of our transactions, we'll be able to drag this wherever we want to take it. Just keep adding all of our expenses. $274.98, State Farm, $64.99 Spectrum is actually already tracked, so I can see that that's already there. Amazon, $12.74. Don't exactly remember what that's for. I think that was my hair product. I like to put hair stuff, but then also where it's from, Amazon. So that way I'll know if I go back and look through my expenses again. But if you're doing it this way and tracking every week or two, you don't really have to do that. Having more information is probably better anyway. $4.35, Wawa, snack for run. Amazon, $303, $17.82. So for something like this, I could put this $35.82, but we split this expense with a friend when we went out, and so we're gonna ask them to Venmo us that money. First off, that's great because we get the point, but then instead of putting that $35.82 in and then when they Venmo us putting that in the income side of things, I just put $17.82, and then once they send us the $18, everything will be square. Because there's also one thing that we're gonna do at the end of this that I don't see a lot of other people doing, but I find it easiest to make sure that my budget is balanced at the end of every month and I can know how much money I can put towards my other wealth building goals. But we'll get to that in a second. What was $7.86 at Walmart? If I don't remember exactly what an expense was, I'll normally just throw it into what's the most likely category. So for this one, it'll probably be a grocery expense because that's normally what we buy at Walmart. So this $129 is counseling stuff, and that is not something that we budgeted for. Yeah, we're definitely over budget for our eating out stuff. I'm not looking forward to seeing how much we are over budget by. All right, next we're in Wells Fargo, so now we just go to our checking account and see if there's anything else that we spent money on. The only thing that we haven't tracked yet is counseling for $135. So now, as we can see, we have 18 new transactions right there, and that's what we're gonna go into now, and we're gonna end up tracking that, and we're gonna see this remaining number go down and down and down. So for like snacks, things like that, that's gonna be grocery expenses. Wawa gas, just come up to find our gas expense. Tijuana Flats, eating out. Auto insurance. Ice cream date, that's date. Duh. Hair stuff, that's personal. Use that for like toiletries, stuff like that. Counseling, gonna leave those for a second. Chili's. So as you'll see now, we only have $20 left in our eating out, but we have $81 left in groceries, and we have 9 days left in the month, and we just bought groceries today. So we're probably gonna be good for groceries for now. So that's what I would actually do with this. So instead of just putting this in the eating out and having that be over budget, because we've budgeted almost all the money that we're gonna have coming in, we wanna make sure that we at least stick within these buckets. So if we fill one up, then we put the rest of the money into a different category. Otherwise, we're gonna either have to make more money, pull some money out of savings, or eat into next month's budget, which is always a little frustrating because then you're not able to spend as much as you might want to. So with this one, if we just click back into it, you can go to split, which is one of the things that I really like about Everydollar. We'll go eating out, and then we'll add the second split will be groceries. There's $20.61 left in eating out, and then the rest of it, as you'll see, is $17.60 tracked and zeroed, and now we have $0 left eating out. Then Amazon tweezers, those are going to be also personal expenses. As you can see, that's over by $1.48, and so we'll have to find a way to put that $1.48 somewhere else. Add a split, and this is something too, like, I don't know, sometimes you got to find stuff. We don't need a lot of gas right now, and we have $100 left in gas for the whole rest of the month, so we'll just put that extra $2 in gas. As long as we're under budget, it should be good. Then we go back to our new transactions, and 7-Eleven is also gas. Yes, we didn't have 100, but we still have $54 left, which is more than enough. Now we got left is counseling. Now this is something that come up. I'm going to counseling. I think you should go to counseling if you think that you need to go to counseling, but it is definitely an unplanned for expense. But luckily, since we own our own business, we do have a little bit of a reserve in there, and we have some credit card points, so we're gonna have to find ways to kind of finagle this expense out of this month's budget, and then find ways to fit it into the next couple of months' budgets, as it's more than what we were planning on taking out of our business. But there's also a spreadsheet that I use in order to do that. We'll have to get to that after I go to the gym with one of my friends, because he's expecting me there in about 25 minutes. But I think cheesy as this is, tracking your expenses is kind of like going to the gym. The more you do it, the easier it's gonna get, the less sore you're gonna feel about having to do it, the better you're gonna be at it. Early on, you gotta focus on your form, just like I was talking about how I used to do it every time that I bought something, I would just immediately track it. But later on, your form is gonna be pretty much down, and you can kind of coast up a like if you like the cheese. My legs are shaking.
Mine too. It's like my right leg has a twitch.
Do you track your expenses?
To an extent.
What does that mean? What does that mean for you?
I'll look at my bank account every few days. That's about it. Like I know how much money it's in my bank account.
Does that work for you? Do you feel like it works for you?
I'm aware that it's not future proof.
Yeah.
But it helps me get by for like my day to day.
You're not like racking up tons and tons of debt because
no,
of it.
yeah, I have no debt except my car.
Awesome.
And I'm able to pay all my bills and I have money left over, and I'm able to build my savings.
Okay.
But when like anytime I think of my future wife and kids and my grandkids, I'm like, this isn't gonna help me get to like create a future for them.
Yeah. So it works, but it's not ideal.
Yeah. Do you
have any tips about tracking your expenses?
Look at your bank account. I had a roommate in college. He was so bad with money, but he made a lot of money. And he got his car towed one time. Oof. Because he was making so much money that he didn't realize that they weren't taking his monthly payment out of his bank account because he never kept up with it. So then 3 months later, they just towed his car. That taught me like, always look at my bank account. You know, just keep up with like
make sure that your stuff's getting paid.
Yeah, I don't know if it helps,
but
it helps me sleep at night.
No, that makes sense. Thanks for sharing, bro. Good lift. Anybody else crazy enough to go to a soccer field right after you do a leg workout? No, just me. It is smoking hot out today, just like you guys. Oh no, my shoe. I agree with a lot of what my buddy Axe was saying. The bank account thing, I initially was like, no, I don't agree with that, but I actually do. I probably said it earlier in this video, but I never look at my bank account when I'm going to make a purchase. But he was saying make sure that all of your payments actually go through, because if you're not paying for your stuff, you're gonna get some services or something cut off and you're not even gonna realize it. And that's exactly what we're gonna be talking about in a second as we get to that spreadsheet that I've been teasing for the last couple minutes. Back in a pretty vibey shirt. Dinner getting made by my lovely wife. Here are 3 pretty rapid fire tips on tracking your expenses, because it is, man, level out. If you're just starting out, try to track your expenses when you're in the store. It's gonna feel really awkward when you're there, or even as you're just leaving and walking out to your car. There's plenty of apps that you can use. I wouldn't use Excel or Sheets. The user interface on your phone is just not great. So going and having an actual app to use is super important. Whether it's Everydollar or anybody else, I'm not sponsored or affiliated with anybody, use what's gonna be good for you.
But if you want to sponsor us.
The second thing is if you don't want to do that, or you feel like that's going to be just a little too much, at least set a date on your calendar every single week to sit down and do this, especially if you're new. If you're not new, if you've been doing this for a while, you probably don't even need to listen to these tips, but you're probably here because that's not the case. So if you haven't tracked your expenses before, do exactly what I just did with whatever budgeting app or even Excel at that point, and just put it on the calendar every single week and get it done. Now the third tip is actually going to lead us to the spreadsheet, which I've been talking about all day long, and that is to not just stop at just tracking your expenses. It's all right to stop there if you don't want to maximize all of your money, but if you're here, you're probably wanting to be smarter with your money. So let's figure out how to do that, and that's what I call a spending plan. You can call it whatever you want. It's just the next level of tracking your expenses to make sure you're using all of your money in the best way possible, because if you don't do this, you're going to end up with either a surplus or too little money at the end of the month, and you might not know what to do with it. That might not be the worst thing in the world because it'll just end up sitting in your bank account, but that money won't be doing its best work just sitting in your bank account because you have a lot of other goals. Everybody has goals with their money, whether that's investing, saving, or even just like my friend Axe was talking about, making sure that he's secure for his future wife and children. So let's get to that spreadsheet, but first, hey Cookie, lady, you don't really track your expenses at all right now. When is the last time you tracked your expenses?
Probably when we were first married.
In what capacity? do you think?
He's just that sweaty, or...
Well, my hair is wet too.
Oh.
See? So,
What was the question?
just think back to when you tracked your expenses. What's been your experience with
For
that?
my personality type, there can be this tendency of like, well, if I don't check it, then like I can just spend whatever I want. I have so much more anxiety when I didn't. Like, it was so much more reassuring to realize that like I actually have like $10 for coffee this month. So like I can go to Starbucks just on a whim. But if I didn't do that, I would just not spend any money, or I would almost binge spending.
So how do you think that like you kind of got out of that habit?
You would ask me at the end of every day, what was this? What was that? What was this? And so I didn't want to have to answer to you, so I would just track it. And then you started texting me on the hour. Like, I would be out and be like, hey, what was this expense? We decided that you tracking it would be better because you were looking at it anyway.
That's fair. Wow, I kind of forget about that phase.
You're like, if you just do it within 12 hours, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so that was when, like, the first tip that I gave, like, tracking it as you're in the store, that's something that I would do, that she wouldn't do as much. That's a great point. I would not have even thought of that because obviously I was not as affected as you were by that. If you have a partner, understand that you might be in different places on that spectrum that I just named, whether you want to track everything immediately, but they might want to do it every week. And so maybe one of you just does it every single day. I kind of decided at that point it was okay for me to ask you whenever I was doing it. Nothing really changed that much. I think I got a better perspective on how often you wanted me to talk to you about it, but nothing really changed in terms of like me asking you. We just had the correct expectations, which I think is key.
Yeah.
You want to say what you say in every single video when I ask you what you think about something?
You should do it.
We're gonna eat and then we'll go over that spreadsheet, but we'll do it in the van because that's way cooler than my stupid desk. Finally get into the spreadsheet. I don't have my phone. I'll be back. Got it. The reason I had to go run and grab my phone is because just like when we were tracking our expenses, this is also going to take both the phone and a computer, or just a split screen, or you can just move between tabs if you want to do that, but I don't want to do that. We're going to first go to Sheets. No! I do not have great signal. Let's see. Yes. Thank you, phone. The sheet that I have is called April 2021 overage. I like to call it overage because I'm doing like an overage calculation. We have a lot of this pre-filled. Go into the Everydollar app here on our phone, or whatever budgeting app that you end up using, because basically this is an overage of how much money you're going to have left at the end of the month, or if you run a business like us, how much you have to take out of your business. So we have the budget side here, credit card payoff, because we use credit cards to buy everything, and then a plus column, which includes our bank account and then anything that we need to take out of a specific account, like from our van life account, as we've been doing a lot of stuff for the van. So tithe, 310, giving 50 left. Rent plus utilities, you'll see that it says 671 there, but there's actually nothing because we've already paid all of that. We just overestimated our normal budget, so that's still zero. Gas, we're going to change that to 54.03. Coffee, $4.18. Oh, we still have coffee left. That's impressive. Discretionary, 53 cents. Sometimes I'll just put zero there instead. It's pretty negligible. And Carissa running shoes, $75. So we have nothing else left to budget. Then we need to go into our credit card app and see how much money we have to pay off on our credit cards. The current balance on one credit card is $22.83, and on the other one it is $15.16 and 68 cents. Now what you shouldn't forget to do is open up the credit card, especially the one that you use most, and look at what's pending. Otherwise this number could be very thrown off because you're gonna have some charges on there that aren't reflected in the total balance yet. You can do it, buddy. I believe in you. Pending $608 and 53 cents. One thing to really note here is there was something that we didn't put in our budget earlier in the video, and that's this Walmart expense for $513.76. So this is going to be for vans. So I'm going to put that here, $513.76, because we have a separate bank account that we have all the savings in that we're going to pull that money out of. Now we have the total budgeted amount, the total credit card amount, and now we're going to need to look at what we have in Wells Fargo. $16.68 $1,408. Our plus is going to be this $1,668 plus the 4 van amount. So we have $2,181. Budget is $928.71. And our credit cards total $2,148.04 that we have to pay off. So our total minus is $3,076, which means that right now our overage is negative $894.91. If we were working for somebody else, this would be a problem. However, because we own our own business, this is the number that we're going to have to take out of the business at the end of the month. There is one thing that I have to add here, which is a second counseling session, which we didn't anticipate yet. So now it's $1,029.91. That's how much I'm going to have to take out of my business. It says it should be less than $555 last month. And normally it should be less than $975, but because of counseling, that's going to be a little bit more for these upcoming months. So hopefully Amazon does well, or everybody smashes the like button so this video can get to more people and I can get monetized faster. Especially when I used to work for myself, this would tell me how much money we saved out of our budget or how much extra money we made that we weren't expecting. And that's the money that you can really use to build wealth. I'll leave a link to this exact spreadsheet that you can make a duplicate of if you want to yourself. Oh, and one other thing, see how there still says there's 2 on the bottom that have left to be tracked because we didn't track those counseling things. This overage calculation will make sure that you account for that because you've already paid for those on your credit card, and we just added in that second piece of counseling that I had forgotten about. And now, knowing that I have that $54 left for gas, $60 left for groceries, does that mean I'm not going to eat out at all over the next 9 days? Not necessarily, because if I don't need to use some of the money that I've allocated towards something, I can use it towards something else and still be fine because I know how much I either need to take out of my business or how much I have left to spend and still be covered under my income. Hope that helps. Back to Everydollar. I honestly am a pretty big fan of the Everydollar app just for its simplicity and the fact that I don't actually have to pay for it. On your phone, it's just going to be a little app that looks like that. When you're just opening it up, you have your budget down here, you have your transactions, you have all of your accounts, which you can do if you have Everydollar Plus. I don't, and I don't think that you necessarily need it. I really like that everything is kind of drag and drop. So income, I can kind of move this around to be where I want it to be. You can change it right there, or you can click into it and put notes towards anything that you want. The other thing that I really like about it is that it's going to break down your income against all of your expenses so that you'll see your total income at the top, see kind of a little ring about how it's allocated, and then you'll know how much you have left to budget to still be under your income. That's a great way to make sure that you're using all the income that you have allocated every single month before you actually get into your month and track your expenses. They have these funds. I've never known how to use them. Even when we were saving for our emergency fund, I used this emergency fund down here, just never ended up syncing exactly with how much I've actually saved. So I don't really know how to use the funds. I'm sure somebody else does. And if you know, put it in the comments so you can help some people out. But I really do like the simplicity of the app. You have all of your different expenses. You could change them at any time. But let's say that I change this phone thing to $130 and you'll see that everything goes red. It says over budget, which is a really big deal. So you don't want to go over budget. And that's just a helpful reminder. The other thing that I really like, which I showed a little bit earlier, is that if I go to a new month, and I haven't budgeted for it yet, which you can see by these little marching ants around July. If you click on it, it'll just create the July budget with the budget that you had for June. You don't really have to worry about adding in everything new because most of your things are going to be the same every month. You just got to make sure that things are different, get accounted for. This overage calculator will do a lot of that for you. The desktop version is exactly the same, except you don't use the mobile app, and they try to sell you a lot more on the desktop version than on the app. So I'd recommend just using the app, and it's really easy to just pull out when you're in the store or to just text your wife and annoy her, but you probably shouldn't do that if you want to have a great marriage. If you're tracking your expenses and wondering what to do with this extra money, watch this video to learn how to invest, or this one to figure out how to save for an emergency fund and cover emergencies in the best way possible. Or you can just watch this playlist, which goes over all of those things and the basics of how to not be done with your money. Drop a like on the video if this helped you out at all, and if it didn't, please still drop a like on the video because I got a cool shirt on. Stay smart.